I stood frozen on the driveway of what used to be my home, staring at the bright red sold sign staked firmly in the front lawn. My luggage still sat beside me, unpacked from the taxi that had just left. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Sorry, sweetie. Had to sell your house to pay off Jackie's gambling debts. $214,000. Can you believe it? She says you can crash in her garage if you want." I felt my knees weaken as the weight of betrayal crushed down on me. My own mother had sold my house while I was away. The disbelief kept me rooted to the spot as neighbors walked by, giving me curious glances. I had spent the last 2 weeks touring Europe, a vacation I had planned for 3 years, saving every penny while working 60-hour weeks at my law firm. At 32, I had finally achieved what I considered success: a stable career as a real estate lawyer, financial security, and my childhood home preserved just the way I remembered it. That home meant everything to me. After Dad passed away from cancer 2 years ago, Mom struggled to maintain the property on her own. I offered to buy it from her, allowing her to move into a comfortable retirement community nearby while I preserved our family home. It had been a win-win situation, or so I thought. My relationship with my sister Jackie had always been complicated. 4 years my junior, she was the free spirit of the family, the one who followed her dreams while I followed the rules. Mom always said Jackie was just like her and needed extra support, while I was strong like your father and could handle anything life threw at me. This division became more pronounced after Dad died. Jackie spiraled, dropping out of college and falling into questionable relationships. Mom constantly bailed her out, emotionally and financially. Still, nothing had prepared me for this level of betrayal. I called a rideshare to take me to Mom's retirement community. During the 20-minute drive, I tried calling Jackie repeatedly, but she sent me straight to voicemail every time. I fought back tears, determined to understand what happened before completely falling apart. Mom's condo complex was modest but pleasant, with manicured gardens and a community center. I had helped her select this place, thinking it would give her peace after Dad's death. As I approached her unit, I heard laughter inside. Female laughter, 2 voices. I knocked sharply 3 times. The laughter stopped abruptly. Mom opened the door, her expression shifting quickly from surprise to a poor attempt at sympathy. "Oh, Bess, you're back already? I thought you were coming home tomorrow." "I changed my flight after getting your text," I said, my voice unnaturally calm. "Care to explain why my house is sporting a sold sign?" Come in," she said, ushering me inside. "Jackie's here. We can explain everything." The living room looked different. A brand new leather sectional had replaced Mom's old floral couch. A massive flat-screen TV dominated one wall. Shopping bags from luxury brands cluttered the floor. Jackie sat cross, legged on the new couch, wearing designer clothes I'd never seen before. Her hair was freshly colored and styled, her nails professionally done. She didn't even try to look apologetic. "Hey, sis," she said casually. "Surprise." "Surprise?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You sold my house and that's all you have to say?" Mom intervened, placing a tentative hand on my shoulder that I immediately shrugged off. "Honey, we had no choice. Jackie got in way over her head with some gambling debts. These weren't nice people she owed money to. They were threatening her. So you sold my house? Without even calling me?" My voice cracked with emotion. Jackie rolled her eyes. "We tried calling, but you were too busy living it up in Europe to answer." "That's a lie and you know it," I said, pulling out my phone. "No missed calls from either of you. No messages asking for help." Mom fidgeted with her new diamond bracelet. "Well, it happened so fast. These people wanted their money immediately." Something wasn't adding up. I scanned the room again, taking in all the new purchases. "How much did you sell my house for?" I demanded. Mom and Jackie exchanged glances. "Just enough to cover Jackie's debts," Mom said evasively. "My house was worth at least $400,000 in today's market," I said, feeling sick. "Jackie's debts were $214,000. Where's the rest?" The silence confirmed my suspicion. They had used the extra money for a shopping spree. "You're homeless!" Jackie suddenly laughed, the sound cruel and mocking. Miss Perfect finally takes a fall. Mom at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, but she didn't contradict Jackie. I felt something break inside me. How could you do this to me? After everything I've done for both of you? Jackie's face hardened. Now you know how it feels to have nothing. You've always been Dad's favorite, the perfect daughter. Now you're homeless. Mom nodded. You can stay with one of your fancy lawyer friends until you figure things out. Jackie needs this money more than you do. I stared at them both, these women who were supposed to be my family, and saw strangers looking back at me. Their callousness shocked me to my core. They had not only stolen my home, but were celebrating my downfall. I turned to leave, unable to bear another minute in their presence. Where are you going? Mom called after me. To find out exactly how you managed to sell a house that wasn't in your name, I replied, my legal training finally kicking in through the emotional fog. Because I'm pretty sure what you've done is illegal. The confident smiles slipped from their faces, and for the first time since I arrived, I felt a glimmer of hope that justice might be possible. The next morning, I woke up on my friend Tara's pull-out couch, my eyes puffy from crying. Tara had been my roommate in law school, and when I called her in tears, she immediately offered her guest room. Her apartment was small but comfortable, located just 15 minutes from my law firm. I made coffee, Tara said, padding into the living room in her slippers. She worked as a criminal prosecutor and understood exactly what I was going through from a legal perspective. And I called in a favor with a buddy at the county records office. He's going to pull the sale documents for your property this morning. Thank you, I said, accepting the steaming mug gratefully. I still can't believe this is happening. Believe it, Tara said firmly, and then fight it. This is textbook fraud. I nodded, taking a sip of coffee. I need to go to the office and take some emergency leave. Then I'm going to figure out exactly how they pulled this off. By noon, I had arranged for 2 weeks of emergency personal leave from my firm. My boss, Alan, was surprisingly understanding. Family betrayal is the worst kind, he said. Take whatever time you need, and use the firm's resources if it helps your case. My next stop was the county records office. The clerk, a friend of Tara's, had already pulled the relevant documents. Here's the deed transfer, he said, spreading the papers on the counter. Filed 2 days after you left the country. And here's the power of attorney form that allowed your mother to act as your representative in the sale. I examined the documents closely. The power of attorney form bore what appeared to be my signature, but I had never signed such a document. This is forged, I said, pointing to the signature. I never gave my mother power of attorney. That's a serious accusation, the clerk said, lowering his voice. You'll want to file a fraud report with the police and contact the title company immediately. By late afternoon, I had spoken with the title company, filed a police report, and scheduled an appointment with a handwriting expert to prove the forgery. I also discovered that the sale had been completed in cash, with no mortgage involved, which explained how it happened so quickly. What I couldn't figure out was who had purchased the property and why they had agreed to such an unusual transaction. The buyer was listed as Coastal Holdings LLC, a company I wasn't familiar with despite my work in real estate law. I decided to pay another visit to Mom and Jackie, this time armed with copies of the forged documents. I needed answers, and I needed them now. When I arrived, only Jackie was there. She opened the door wearing new designer sunglasses pushed up on her head. Mom's not here, she said, moving to close the door. I stuck my foot in the doorway. I'm not here to see Mom. I want to talk to you about these. I held up the folder containing the documents. Jackie hesitated, then shrugged and let me in. The condo was even more cluttered with new purchases than the day before. I know the signatures are forged, Jackie, I said, cutting straight to the point. That's a felony. So is selling property that doesn't belong to you. Prove it, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Oh, I will, I assured her. But first, I want to know the truth about these gambling debts. 214,000 is an oddly specific number. Jackie's face flushed. What does it matter? Money is money. It matters because I don't think you lost that money gambling at all, I said, watching her closely. I think there's more to this story. Jackie's eyes darted around the room nervously. You don't know what you're talking about. Then enlighten me. After a long pause, Jackie sighed dramatically. Fine, it wasn't exactly gambling. It was an investment that went bad. What kind of investment? My boyfriend Gary had this business opportunity, importing luxury goods from overseas. No taxes, huge markups. We just needed startup capital. I felt my stomach sink. You got involved in smuggling? No, Jackie protested too quickly. Just gray market stuff. But our supplier raised his prices after we'd already committed to buyers. We lost everything and had to borrow to cover the difference. From whom? I pressed. Jackie looked away. Just some guys Gary knows. Loan sharks, I translated, and now they're after you for the money. Jackie's silence was confirmation enough. I pulled out my phone and did a quick social media search for her boyfriend, Gary Weston. His profile was mostly private, but I could see enough to recognize the type. Flashy clothes, expensive cars, all the hallmarks of someone living beyond their means. Does Mom know the truth? I asked. She knows enough, Jackie muttered. She knows I was in danger. So you both decided the solution was to steal my house? The betrayal stung freshly. Why not just ask me for help? Because you would have said no, Jackie suddenly shouted. You always judge me. You think you're so much better than me with your law degree and your perfect life. I would have helped you find a legal solution, I shouted back. I wouldn't have let you get hurt. Yeah, right, Jackie scoffed. You abandoned us, Bess. After Dad died, you buried yourself in work. Mom needed you, and you were never there. That's not true, I protested. But a small voice inside whispered that maybe I had been less present than I should have been. Still, that didn't justify what they'd done. The front door opened, and Mom walked in carrying more shopping bags. She froze when she saw me. What's she doing here? She asked Jackie, as if I weren't standing right there. Asking questions about the house, Jackie replied. She knows about the forgery. Mom's face hardened. We did what we had to do. Family takes care of family. I am family, I said, my voice breaking. You stole from me to help her. How is that taking care of family? You've always had everything handed to you, Mom said, her voice bitter. Your father made sure of that. Jackie struggles. She needs the support. You can rebuild. She can't. The raw resentment in her voice stunned me. All these years, I'd thought Mom was proud of my accomplishments. Now I realized she had seen them as some kind of betrayal. Dad didn't hand me anything, I said quietly. I worked for everything I have, everything I had. I corrected myself. Your father paid for your college, Mom countered. He encouraged your ambitions. Jackie never had that. He offered the same to Jackie, I reminded her. She chose not to go. It's not the same, and you know it, Mom snapped. You owe this to your sister after abandoning us for your career. Family sacrifices for each other. The unfairness of it all overwhelmed me. In their eyes, my hard work and success were things to be punished. My sacrifices counted for nothing. This isn't over, I said, gathering my documents. What you did was illegal, and I'm going to prove it. As I walked out, I heard Jackie call after me. Good luck finding a judge who'll side with the rich lawyer over her poor, struggling family. Her words followed me all the way to my car, where I finally let the tears fall. My own mother and sister not only didn't love me, they actively resented me for my success. Everything I thought I knew about my family had been a lie. The following week passed in a blur of legal consultations and emotional turbulence. I stayed at Tara's apartment, trying to establish some sense of normalcy while my life was in shambles. Each night I dreamed of my house, of the memories embedded in its walls that were now lost to me. The handwriting expert confirmed what I already knew. The signatures on the power of attorney and deed transfer were forgeries, not even particularly good ones. The police had opened an investigation but warned me that family fraud cases were complicated and often came down to one person's word against another's. The title company was conducting its own investigation, but the cash nature of the transaction made everything more difficult. The buyer, Coastal Holdings LLC, appeared to be a shell company, and tracking down its owners was proving challenging. More troubling was my increasing suspicion that Gary, Jackie's boyfriend, might be connected to the buyer in some way. The speed and secrecy of the transaction suggested inside knowledge, but proving it would be difficult. Despite all my legal training, I felt helpless. The system I had dedicated my career to navigating for others now seemed to be failing me when I needed it most. One rainy afternoon, I decided to salvage what I could of my personal belongings. The new owners had agreed to let me collect anything left in the house before they took full possession at the end of the week. Driving up to my former home felt surreal. A security company representative met me at the door with a form to sign, agreeing I would take only personal items, nothing attached to the property. Walking through the empty rooms was like moving through a dream. Most of the furniture was gone, presumably sold along with the house. Only a few boxes remained in the attic and garage, items deemed not worth taking. In the attic, I found a dusty box labeled Dad's Papers. Inside were old tax returns, insurance policies, and a folder marked Property. Curious, I opened it and began looking through the documents. What I found stopped me cold. A deed transfer from 27 years ago, when I was just 5 years old. My father had purchased this house in his and my mother's names. But there was another deed from 7 years ago, when I was 25, transferring full ownership of the property to me alone. I read it 3 times to be sure. My father had transferred the house to my name before he got sick, before he died. The house had been legally mine for 7 years before I bought it from my mother. I sat back on my heels, trying to process this information. My mother had sold me a house that was already mine. I had paid her $300,000 for property I already owned. And then she had sold it again, without my consent, while I was out of the country. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. This wasn't just about Jackie's debts or Mom playing favorites. This was calculated deception, years in the making. I carefully packed all the documents and continued searching. In a corner of the attic, I found a fireproof lockbox I'd never seen before. It was locked, but the key was taped to the bottom, hidden from casual view. Inside were more documents. My father's handwritten notes about family finances, copies of his will, and letters addressed to me and Jackie that had never been delivered. With shaking hands, I opened the one with my name. "Dearest Bess," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've discovered the truth about the house. I transferred it to your name because I always knew you would be the one to keep our family home safe. Your mother doesn't know, and I ask that you keep it that way. She would only feel hurt that I didn't trust her financial judgment. Let her believe she's helping you by selling you the house. It will give her purpose. Forgive an old man's deception. All my love, Dad." Tears streamed down my face. My father had known. He had anticipated my mother's behavior and tried to protect me, even from beyond the grave. But his plan had backfired in a way he could never have foreseen. I found no similar letter for Jackie, only financial statements showing substantial payments to her over the years. My father had been supporting her secretly, trying to help her establish independence without making her feel like a charity case. By the time I left the house, clutching the box of documents, my grief had hardened into resolve. This was no longer just about getting my house back. This was about exposing years of deception and manipulation. I drove straight to my mother's condo, the box of evidence on the passenger seat beside me. When she opened the door, her false smile faded at the sight of my expression. "We need to talk," I said, pushing past her into the living room. Jackie wasn't there this time. I placed the deed on the coffee table. "Do you want to explain this?" Mom glanced at it, then away. "I don't know what that is." "Yes, you do," I insisted. "It's the deed showing Dad transferred the house to me 7 years ago, before I bought it from you. A house that was already legally mine." Her face paled. "That can't be right." "It is right. You sold me my own house, Mom, and then you sold it again to pay off Jackie's debts." She sat down heavily on the new leather couch. "Your father must have made a mistake." "No mistake," I said, pulling out the letter. "He did it deliberately. He knew you couldn't be trusted with money." "Let me see that," she demanded, reaching for the letter, which I held just out of reach. "Did you know about this letter? Did you hide it from me?" Her silence was damning. "You knew," I realized. "You found these papers after Dad died, and instead of giving them to me, you hid them and sold me a house that was already mine." "You could afford it," she said defensively. "I needed the money for retirement to help Jackie." "So you committed fraud," I stated flatly. "And then you did it again, selling my house out from under me." "It wasn't like that," she protested weakly. "Then what was it like, Mom? Explain it to me. Help me understand how my own mother could steal from me." "Twice." She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "You don't understand what it's like to struggle. Everything always came easily to you. Good grades, scholarships, your career. Jackie has had to fight for everything." "I worked for what I have," I corrected her. 60, Our weeks, nights, weekends, nothing was handed to me. Your father always favored you, she continued as if I hadn't spoken. I was just balancing the scales. The sad thing was, she believed it. In her mind, she was the hero of this story, the mother protecting her vulnerable younger daughter from her privileged older one. I'm going to get my house back, I told her quietly. And when I do, we're going to have a serious conversation about what family really means. I left her sitting there, surrounded by the spoils of her betrayal, and felt for the first time in days that I might actually find a way through this nightmare. After discovering the truth about the house ownership, I decided against immediate legal action, not because I forgave them, but because I needed time to formulate a plan that would truly serve justice. Rushing in with lawsuits and police reports might satisfy my anger, but it wouldn't necessarily get me the best outcome. I returned to work, taking comfort in the structured environment of the law firm. My colleagues knew something was wrong, but I kept the details vague, saying only that I was dealing with a complex family property dispute. The irony wasn't lost on me that I specialized in real estate law, yet had become a victim of real estate fraud. During lunch breaks, I researched Coastal Holdings LLC more thoroughly. After several dead ends, I discovered it was registered to a man named Thomas Blake, a local real estate investor with a reputation for quick flips of distressed properties. More importantly, Thomas Blake was a regular at the same underground poker games that Gary, Jackie's boyfriend, frequented. The connection was too coincidental. I was starting to see the full picture. Gary had orchestrated the entire scheme. He had convinced Jackie and my mother to sell my house to his associate at a below-market rate, probably with the promise of a kickback beyond paying off the supposed debt. Rather than confront them immediately with this knowledge, I decided on a different approach. I called my mother and asked to meet with her, Jackie, and Gary to discuss a possible solution to our family problem. You're willing to talk now? Mom sounded suspicious. I've had time to think, I said, keeping my voice neutral, and I recognize that family is important. I want to help Jackie with her debt situation, but I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at my mother's condo. I arrived precisely on time, dressed not in my usual business attire, but in casual clothes, projecting an image of someone who had accepted defeat. I brought a bottle of wine as a peace offering. Gary was exactly as I had imagined, tall, conventionally handsome, with an expensive watch that looked like a knockoff and a smile that never reached his eyes. He greeted me with forced warmth, clearly having been coached to make nice with the sister. In law, he had helped defraud. Bess. Finally nice to meet you. Jackie talks about you all the time. I smiled, pretending I didn't know he was a con man. All good things, I hope. Of course, he lied smoothly. I uncorked the wine and poured glasses for everyone, then raised mine in a toast. To family, I said, watching their reactions carefully, and to fresh starts. Mom looked relieved, Jackie suspicious, and Gary calculating. None of them trusted my sudden change of heart, but they wanted to believe it because it made their lives easier. So, I began after taking a sip. I understand you two are in some financial trouble. I want to help, but I need to know what we're dealing with. Who exactly is this money owed to? Gary and Jackie exchanged glances. Just some investors, Gary said vaguely. Business deal gone wrong. Nothing for you to worry about now that it's handled. Actually, I countered gently. As someone who just lost her home over this debt, I think I have a right to know the details. $214,000 is a very specific amount. Gary's smile tightened. Look, it's complicated business stuff. The important thing is, the debt's paid, everyone's safe, and we can all move forward. Humor me, I insisted. I'm a lawyer. I deal with complicated stuff all the time. After more deflection, Jackie finally blurted out. It was Marcus Delaney, okay? Gary borrowed from him for our business, and when things went south, Marcus wanted his money back, with interest. I recognized the name immediately. Marcus Delaney was notorious in legal circles as a loan shark with ties to organized crime. His specialty was lending to desperate entrepreneurs, then collecting through intimidation when they inevitably failed to repay. And the original loan amount was? I prompted. $100,000, Gary admitted reluctantly. The rest was interest and penalties. Over what period? 6 months, Jackie mumbled. The math was absurd. Over 100% interest in half a year. And you didn't think to come to me before things got this bad? I asked, looking directly at Jackie. I could have helped you navigate this legally. You would have judged us, she said defensively. Looked down on us for failing. I would have protected you, I corrected her. That's what family does. I noticed Gary shifting uncomfortably. Anyway, it's all water under the bridge now, he said dismissively. The debt's paid. Is it? I asked innocently. I've been doing some research on Coastal Holdings. Interesting company. Gary's face remained neutral, but a muscle in his jaw twitched. Never heard of them. Really? That's odd, because Thomas Blake is a known associate of yours. In fact, I have photos of you two together at the Royal Flush Poker Room just last month. This was a calculated bluff. I had no such photos, but Gary didn't know that. You've been investigating me? Gary's friendly facade cracked, showing anger underneath. I investigate everyone who cost me $400,000, I replied calmly. It's just good business. Mom looked confused. What are you talking about, Bess? I'm talking about the fact that my house sold for much more than Jackie's debt. And I suspect Gary here arranged for his friend to buy it at a discount, with a kickback for himself on the side. The blood drained from Jackie's face. That's not true, she said, but her eyes darted to Gary. Thomas Blake bought the house for $430,000, I continued. Jackie's debt was $214,000. That leaves $216,000 unaccounted for. Some went to your shopping spree, obviously, but I'm guessing a significant amount went to Gary as a finder's fee. You don't know what you're talking about, Gary snapped, standing up abruptly. Jackie, we're leaving. Sit down, Gary, I said, my voice suddenly hard. Unless you want me to call Thomas Blake right now and tell him I'm contesting the sale due to fraud, which would make his investment worthless. Gary hesitated, then slowly sat back down. I want to be clear, I continued. I could have come here with the police. I have evidence of forgery, fraud, and conspiracy that could send all three of you to prison. But I didn't, because despite everything, you're still my family. I nodded toward Mom and Jackie, deliberately excluding Gary. What do you want? Gary asked warily. First, the truth. All of it. No more lies. For the next hour, the whole sordid story came tumbling out. Gary had indeed arranged the sale to his associate at below market value. The debt to Marcus Delaney was real, but Gary had inflated the amount to squeeze more money from the sale. He and Jackie had been planning to take their cut and move to Florida, leaving my mother behind once the money was spent. Mom looked devastated as the extent of the deception became clear. Jackie vacillated between defending Gary and accusing him of manipulating her. Throughout it all, I remained calm, recording the entire conversation on my phone. Not only were they admitting to defrauding me, but they were implicating each other in the process. When they finished, I nodded slowly. Thank you for being honest finally. Now here's what's going to happen. I laid out a plan that would appear to benefit all of us. I would not press charges if they cooperated with me in unwinding the fraudulent sale. Gary would convince Thomas Blake to rescind the purchase due to unforeseen title issues. Mom and Jackie would sign affidavits admitting they had no right to sell the property. In exchange, I would help negotiate with Marcus Delaney for a reasonable repayment plan for Jackie's legitimate debt. Why would you help us after what we did to you? Jackie asked, genuine confusion in her voice. I looked at her sadly. Because that's what family is supposed to do. Help each other without expecting to be repaid. Something you and Mom never understood. The meeting ended with tentative agreement to my terms. As they walked me to the door, my mother suddenly hugged me. I'm sorry, she whispered. I got so caught up in helping Jackie that I lost sight of what was right. I returned the hug stiffly. I want to believe you, Mom. But trust has to be earned back. As I walked to my car, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. They had no idea what I had really discovered about the property, or what I was planning next. Sometimes justice required a gentle touch, and sometimes it required a sledgehammer. I was prepared to use both. The next phase of my plan unfolded over the following 2 weeks. I maintained the pretense of reconciliation, even having dinner with Mom and Jackie twice, carefully keeping the conversation light and forward, looking. Gary remained suspicious of my sudden forgiveness but played along, likely believing he could outsmart me in the end. Behind the scenes, I was building my case methodically. I met with the county assessor and pulled the complete property records for my house, going back to when my parents first purchased it in 1991. What I discovered confirmed a suspicion that had been growing since finding my father's documents. In 2008, my father had quietly subdivided the property into two parcels, the original house and front yard on a 1-acre lot, and the remaining 5 acres behind it, which included a small guest cottage he had renovated and 2 additional rental cabins that generated modest but steady income. The subdivision had been properly registered with the county, but was not obvious in the standard title search. When he transferred the house to my name in 2018, he had specifically transferred both parcels. But when Mom fraudulently sold my house, the legal description on the deed only included the front parcel with the main house. The back 5 acres, with its income, producing rental properties, remained in my name. Thomas Blake, Gary's associate who purchased the property, likely had no idea he had bought only a fraction of the original estate. The property line ran directly behind the main house, meaning the expansive backyard and woods that made the property so valuable were not included in his purchase. This revelation changed everything. I now had legal leverage beyond just the fraud claim. Blake had bought a property under false pretenses, and when he discovered the discrepancy, he would have grounds to void the sale himself. I scheduled a meeting with Blake without informing Gary, Jackie, or my mother. His office was in a modern glass building downtown, the kind of place designed to impress clients with money but little sophistication. "Miss Lawson," Blake greeted me with rehearsed charm. "What can I do for you today? If this is about allowing you more time to remove personal items from the property, I'm afraid the new tenants are moving in next week." "Actually," I said, placing a folder on his desk, "I'm here about a rather serious problem with your purchase. You might want to have your attorney look at these documents." Blake's smile faltered as he opened the folder and scanned the property records I had compiled. "What am I looking at here?" "Evidence that you purchased only the front acre of a 6-acre property," I explained calmly. "The house sits on that acre, yes, but the property line runs just 20 feet behind it. The remaining 5 acres, including 3 rental units currently occupied by tenants who pay their rent to me, were not included in your purchase." Blake's face darkened. "That's not possible. I walked the entire property with my agent." "Your agent was Gary Weston," I reminded him, "who conspired with my sister and mother to sell you a property they didn't own via forged documents while I was out of the country." Blake leaned back in his chair, reassessing me. "You're alleging fraud." "I'm not alleging anything. I'm stating facts. Facts that my attorney will be sharing with the district attorney's office tomorrow morning, unless we can reach an arrangement today." "What kind of arrangement?" "You rescind the purchase due to misrepresentation and title defects. I agree not to name you personally in my criminal complaint against Gary, my sister, and my mother. You get your money back, your reputation stays intact, and you walk away with a valuable lesson about doing business with Gary Weston." Blake studied me for a long moment. "You're bluffing. If you had enough evidence for criminal charges, you wouldn't be here offering me a deal." I pulled out my phone and played a short clip from my recorded conversation with Gary, Jackie, and my mother, where they explicitly discussed forging my signature and selling the property without my consent. "This is just a sample," I said, stopping the recording. "I have much more, including documentation proving the property was legally mine alone when they sold it, and evidence that Gary deliberately misrepresented what was being sold to inflate the price." Blake's expression shifted from skepticism to resignation. "I want full reimbursement of all costs, including inspections and legal fees." "Agreed, as long as you provide a complete statement about Gary's role in the transaction." We hammered out the details over the next hour. Blake would file to rescind the purchase first thing Monday morning. In exchange, I would ensure he recovered his full investment plus expenses. He also agreed to provide a sworn statement about Gary's involvement, which would be crucial for my case. As I left Blake's office, I received a text from Jackie. "Mom says you're coming for Sunday dinner tomorrow. Bring wine?" I smiled grimly. They still believed I was playing along with their charade of reconciliation. Tomorrow would be quite the wake-up call. Sunday dinner at Mom's condo was a tense affair, despite everyone's efforts to maintain the illusion of family harmony. Gary kept checking his phone nervously. Jackie talked too loudly about trivial topics, and Mom fussed over the food as if perfect lasagna could erase what they had done. I waited until dessert was served before dropping my bombshell. I had an interesting meeting with Thomas Blake yesterday, I said casually, taking a bite of tiramisu. The silence was immediate and absolute. Gary's fork clattered against his plate. "Why would you meet with Blake?" he demanded. "To discuss the property line issue," I replied mildly. "It seems there was a misunderstanding about exactly what was sold." Mom looked confused. "Property line issue? What are you talking about?" I turned to her. "Dad subdivided the property years ago, Mom. The house sits on the front acre. The back 5 acres with the rental cottages are a separate parcel. When you sold my house, you only sold the front acre. The rest still belongs to me." Jackie's face paled. "That can't be right." "It is, and Blake is not happy about it. He's rescinding the purchase first thing tomorrow morning." Gary stood up abruptly. "You had no right to interfere in this deal." "I had every right," I countered calmly. "It's my property. And unlike the 3 of you, I have the documentation to prove it." "You said you forgave us," Mom whispered, "that you wanted to help." "I said I wanted to help Jackie with her legitimate debt," I corrected her. "And I do. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let you all get away with stealing from me." Gary paced the small dining area. "Do you realize what you've done? Blake will demand his money back. Money we've already spent." "Not all of it," I pointed out. "Jackie's debt was paid, but where's the rest? The extra $200,000? Gary and Jackie exchanged guilty glances. "You were planning to run," I realized. "Take the money and disappear before Mom discovered you'd abandoned her." "That's not true," Jackie protested, but her eyes told a different story. Mom looked between her youngest daughter and Gary, the truth finally dawning on her. "Jackie? Is that true? Were you going to leave me?" Jackie's silence was answer enough. "I trusted you," Mom said, her voice breaking. "I risked everything to help you, and you were going to abandon me?" The family unity fractured before my eyes. Jackie accused Gary of manipulating her. Gary blamed Jackie for involving her family in the first place, and Mom retreated into stunned silence as her carefully constructed justifications crumbled. I let them argue, watching the alliances shift and break in real time. Finally, when they had exhausted themselves, I spoke again. "Tomorrow, Blake will file to rescind the sale. The money will have to be returned. The question is, what happens after that? Do I press charges for fraud and forgery, or do we find another way forward?" "What way forward?" Jackie asked bitterly. "We can't repay the money, and Marcus Delaney will come after us again." "I told you I would help with the legitimate debt," I reminded her. $100,000 to Delaney, not the inflated amount Gary claimed. "I can negotiate with him. He's a businessman. He'll take a reasonable payment plan over nothing." "Why would you help us after what we did?" Mom asked, echoing Jackie's question from our previous meeting. I looked at each of them in turn. "Because despite everything, we're family. And I want to believe there's a path to redemption for all of us. But that path starts with complete honesty and accepting responsibility." One by one, they nodded, the fight gone out of them. Even Gary, seeing his scheme unraveling completely, seemed to accept defeat. As I drove home that night, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: satisfaction at having outmaneuvered them, sadness at the broken trust, and a cautious hope that perhaps, with time and effort, some form of family relationship might be salvaged from the wreckage of their betrayal. But first, justice needed to be served. Monday morning arrived with a flurry of legal activity. Thomas Blake filed to rescind his purchase based on material misrepresentation. The title company launched a formal investigation, and I filed a civil suit against Gary, Jackie, and my mother for fraud, forgery, and emotional distress. The speed of events caught them off guard. By Monday afternoon, Mom was calling me in tears. "The bank froze my accounts," she sobbed. "They're saying it's possible fraud proceeds. What am I supposed to do?" "Where's Jackie?" I asked, unmoved by her distress. "She's not answering her phone. Neither is Gary. I think they've left town." I wasn't surprised. "Pack an overnight bag, Mom. You can stay at Tara's apartment with me tonight. We'll figure something out tomorrow." Despite everything, I couldn't leave my mother homeless. When I picked her up that evening, she looked smaller somehow, diminished by the consequences of her actions. The flashy jewelry and designer clothes were gone, replaced by her old, familiar wardrobe. "I've made such terrible mistakes," she said quietly as we drove to Tara's place. I don't know how to make it right. Start by telling me the whole truth, I suggested. No more lies or justifications. Over dinner, with Tara tactfully absent, Mom finally opened up. After Dad died, she had felt lost and afraid. Jackie, always more emotionally demonstrative than me, had become her rock. When Jackie started dating Gary and getting into financial trouble, Mom had convinced herself that helping Jackie was her primary duty as a mother. I knew selling your house was wrong, she admitted, but Gary convinced us it was the only way to save Jackie from these dangerous people. And part of me was angry at you too. You were so successful, so independent. You didn't need me the way Jackie did. So you punished me for my success, I concluded. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I told myself you'd be fine, that you could just buy another house. I didn't think about what that home meant to you. We talked late into the night, peeling back layers of resentment and miscommunication that had been building for years. By morning, we had reached a fragile understanding. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a foundation we might eventually rebuild upon. My phone rang at 6:30 in the morning. It was a detective from the fraud division. Miss Lawson? We've located Gary Weston and Jacqueline Lawson attempting to board a flight to Cancun. They've been detained based on the fraud report you filed. They had approximately $150,000 in cash in their luggage. I closed my eyes, a mixture of relief and sadness washing over me. Thank you, detective. I'll be at the station as soon as possible. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table when I returned. One look at my face told her everything. They tried to run, she stated flatly. I nodded. With $150,000 of Blake's money. She buried her face in her hands. What happens now? Now, we go to the police station. You give a complete statement about the fraud, focusing on Gary's role in orchestrating everything. We emphasize that you were manipulated and that you're cooperating fully. Will that keep me out of jail? I don't know, I answered honestly, but it's your best chance. The police station was chaotic that morning. Jackie and Gary had been separated, each blaming the other for the scheme. When Jackie saw me and Mom arrive together, her face contorted with rage. You're taking her side now? She screamed across the booking area. After what she did to you? I'm not taking anyone's side, I replied calmly. I'm here for the truth, all of it. As Mom was led away to give her statement, a detective I hadn't met before approached me. Miss Lawson? I'm Detective Rivera with the Financial Crimes Task Force. We need to speak with you regarding Marcus Delaney. I followed him to a small conference room where a man in an expensive suit was waiting. He stood as I entered. Miss Lawson, I'm Special Agent Carter, FBI. We've been investigating Marcus Delaney for loan sharking and money laundering for over a year. Your complaint has provided us with a valuable connection to a case we've been building. I sat down slowly, trying to process this new development. I'm happy to help, but my main concern is recovering my property and ensuring my family faces appropriate consequences for their actions. We understand, Agent Carter nodded. And we believe we can help each other. Delaney's operation extends beyond simple loan sharking. He's been using desperate borrowers like your sister and her boyfriend to launder money through real estate transactions. The pieces clicked into place. Thomas Blake is involved too, isn't he? The whole property purchase was part of a money laundering scheme. We have reason to believe so, the agent confirmed. We'd like your cooperation in building our case against all parties involved. For the next several hours, I provided the FBI with every detail I had uncovered, from the forged documents to the property subdivision to the recorded conversations. In return, they shared information about their investigation into Delaney's organization, revealing that Gary had been on their radar as a low-level associate for months. When we finished, Agent Carter made me an offer. In exchange for your continued cooperation as a witness, we can ensure that the charges against your mother are reduced to reflect her lesser role. Your sister would face more serious charges but could potentially receive leniency in exchange for testimony against Weston and Delaney. And my property? The title will be restored to you as the rightful owner. The money seized from Weston and your sister will be held as evidence, but could eventually be returned to Blake's company as the defrauded party. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was justice of a sort. I agreed to the arrangement. When I finally left the police station that evening, Mom was released to my custody with charges pending but no immediate jail time. Jackie remained in custody, facing multiple felony counts. Gary had been transferred to federal holding to await arraignment on money laundering charges. Is Jackie going to prison? Mom asked as we drove back to Tara's apartment. Probably, I answered honestly. But if she cooperates, she might get a reduced sentence. Mom nodded, seeming to accept this reality. And what about us? Will you ever forgive me? I kept my eyes on the road. I don't know, Mom. Trust is hard to rebuild once it's broken, but I'm willing to try, if you are. I am, she said softly. Whatever it takes. As we pulled into the parking lot, my phone rang again. It was Detective Rivera. Miss Lawson, we found something in Gary Weston's storage unit that you should see. Financial records, going back years, including transactions between your father and sister that don't match what you told us. My heart sank. What kind of transactions? Regular payments from your father to your sister through an account we can't identify yet, large sums. And there's a letter addressed to you that was never delivered. Can you come in tomorrow morning? I agreed, wondering what new revelations awaited me. The path to justice was proving more twisted than I had imagined, with each answer spawning new questions. But for the first time since returning to find my house sold, I felt I was getting closer to the whole truth. The storage unit discovery led to the final piece of the puzzle. The next morning, I sat in Detective Rivera's office, staring at financial records that told a story my father had kept hidden from me. For years, he had been making regular payments to Jackie from a trust fund he had established for both of us. My portion had been invested in property and education, while Jackie had received direct cash disbursements. The amounts were equal, but the methods of distribution reflected our different personalities and needs. More shocking was the letter addressed to me, dated just weeks before his death. It revealed that Dad had known about Jackie's relationship with Gary, and had been trying to protect her from his influence by providing financial independence. He had also set up a secondary trust for both of us that would activate upon his death, but this document had apparently been intercepted and hidden by my mother. Your father wanted to protect both his daughters equally, Detective Rivera explained. But it seems your mother and sister concealed this from you, and used the house that was already mine to solve problems my father had already provided for, I added, the irony bitter on my tongue. When confronted with this evidence, my mother broke down completely. I was afraid of losing Jackie to that man, she sobbed. When your father set up separate trusts, I saw it as him playing favorites again. I convinced myself that you didn't need your share because you were already successful. In the weeks that followed, the legal proceedings moved forward with surprising speed. The FBI's interest in Delaney elevated the priority of the case, and plea negotiations began almost immediately. Gary faced the most serious charges, including money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy. He quickly turned on Delaney in exchange for a reduced sentence, providing evidence that implicated both Delaney and Thomas Blake in a larger real estate fraud scheme. Jackie, facing multiple felony counts, followed Gary's example and cooperated fully. In recognition of her lesser role and clean prior record, she was offered a plea deal. 18 months in a minimum, security facility followed by 3 years of probation, plus restitution. My mother received the most lenient treatment. Due to her age, lack of criminal history, and full cooperation, she was sentenced to 2 years of probation and 200 hours of community service. She would also be required to attend financial counseling and therapy. As for me, I reclaimed legal ownership of my entire property. The main house had been damaged during Blake's brief ownership, with walls torn out for renovations that were never completed. It would take significant work to make it livable again. 6 months after returning from my European vacation to find my house sold, I stood on the property with a contractor, discussing rebuilding options. We could restore it to the original layout, he suggested, or redesign it completely. Your choice. I looked at the damaged structure, thinking about all that had happened. Actually, I have something else in mind. Over the next year, I transformed the property. Instead of simply rebuilding the main house, I created a family compound with separate living spaces. The main house was reconstructed as my primary residence, while one of the rental cottages was expanded and renovated to become a comfortable home for my mother after she completed her probation. The remaining rentals were maintained as income properties, with a portion of the proceeds dedicated to a legitimate trust for Jackie upon her release. The entire property was placed in a family trust with clear legal protections to prevent any future attempts at unauthorized sales. During Jackie's incarceration, I visited monthly. Our relationship, strained for so many years by perceived favoritism and resentment, slowly began to heal through honest conversations about our shared past and different perspectives. "I always thought Dad loved you more," she admitted during one visit. "You were the responsible one, the successful one." "And I always thought Mom favored you," I replied. "The truth is, they both loved us in different ways. Dad tried to support us according to our different needs and personalities. Mom didn't understand that approach. I let jealousy poison me," Jackie acknowledged. "And Gary used that to manipulate all of us." By the time she was released, Jackie had completed an associate's degree in business administration through the prison education program. She moved into one of the smaller cottages on the property, maintaining her independence while staying connected to the family. Mom, humbled by the consequences of her actions and the discovery of Dad's true intentions, devoted herself to rebuilding our relationship. Her community service at a senior center evolved into a part-time job, giving her purpose beyond family dynamics. 18 months after that devastating homecoming, I hosted a small gathering in my rebuilt home. Mom and Jackie helped prepare dinner in the new kitchen, the three of us moving in a careful dance of reconciliation. Tara came as well, having remained a steadfast friend throughout the ordeal. After dinner, we sat on the back deck overlooking the property that had nearly torn us apart, but was now bringing us together in a new configuration. "I never imagined we'd be here like this after what happened," Jackie said quietly. "I thought I'd lost you both forever." "Family is complicated," I replied. "But Dad always believed in second chances. That's why he set up the trusts the way he did. He wanted us to have security, even if we made mistakes." "He would be proud of how you handled everything," Mom said, reaching for my hand. "You found a way to honor justice without abandoning family." I squeezed her hand, thinking of the journey we had taken. The betrayal had been profound, the pain deep and lasting. But in its wake, we had found a more honest relationship, one built on clear boundaries and genuine understanding rather than unspoken expectations and resentment. The house they sold was actually more than just property. It was the physical manifestation of our family history, with all its flaws and complexities. In rebuilding it, I had also rebuilt our family, not as it was but as it could be, with space for individual growth and clear boundaries that protected each of us. As the sun set over the property my father had worked so hard to secure for his daughters, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for months. Justice had been served, not through vengeance but through truth and transformation. The path forward wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and that made all the difference. Have you ever faced a betrayal by someone you trusted completely? How did you balance justice with the possibility of reconciliation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with others who might find comfort or wisdom in this journey from betrayal to healing. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength in navigating your own family complexities.